The other night, after I spent a number of hours watching the hearings on Goldman Sachs, which I talked about in my video yesterday, I then spent a little time watching a short clip, a portion of the first meeting of this deficit commission that has been formed, which shows you what my social life is like, that I spend late at nights watching C-SPAN, but that's another story. And what struck me was that all these people around the table, at least the part that I watched, not a single one of them stood up and said, now wait a minute, for the last 30 years, most of the American people have had their wealth looted, either because they worked really hard and they didn't get the fair share of that hard work, or because they invested their money in Wall Street, and we know what that happened there, that the folks like Goldman Sachs and the bankers in Wall Street, all the people that are funding my opponent, they looted us, essentially through a scam. And not a single person stood up and said, wait a minute, all the people got looted, and now what you're saying is that we're going to cut services, we're going to cut Medicare, we're going to cut the spending, social spending that really services the American people and is part of a decent society. And so we're going to make the very people who were robbed, the victims, pay for that robbery. Now, that makes no sense to me. I think that that's immoral. And I'm against this deficit commission because at the very least there are two simple things that if I was part of this commission, if I'm in the United States Senate, I would argue. Before we start cutting Medicare, before we start cutting basic government services, let's look at three things. Let's have a serious debate about our bloated military budget, about the immoral wars that we're fighting and spending trillions of dollars, first in Iraq and Afghanistan. Number two, if we had a single-payer system and we took away the profit from healthcare, boy, you could lower the costs of Medicare and Medicaid dramatically. And I think that was the major flaw in the healthcare legislation that passed, that our party, in particular Democrats, were not willing to confront the insurance industry and the drug industry. And number three, look, the wealthy have become very wealthy and they're not paying their fair share of taxes. We need to ask, and I have a very clear proposal on our website at jonathantasini.com, we need to ask the top 1%, the top 5% to pay their fair share, to pay a little bit more towards society's goals and to deal with our fiscal outlook. If we did those three things, I'm confident that we would make a significant impact on the so-called deficit problem. And not only that, we'd be putting more money in people's pockets indirectly, which would then allow them to spend and buy things, which would help the economy, and by extension, put more revenues in the government's pocket, in our pocket, so that we can build roads, build schools, revive our economy, and have a decent society. So that's what I was thinking about when I watched that film. If you have a chance, check out that on C-SPAN, the Deficit Commission first hearing, and let me know what you think.